And welcome back to the Constitutionals podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. 2 episodes this week. We got 2 episodes of this show coming out this week, mostly because there's too many stories for the 1 episode I was going to record on Friday, and I did not record last week, so I say, let's keep going. What's been going on? Nothing much, really. I saw Fast X. I have issues with it, and I usually like all. I think 5 onward are the best ones. I do think that this one was a little not bloated, because I do think that it does set up 3 separate stories, but it felt very disjointed. And Dan Mizzou and Justin Lin were the screenwriters for the movie. Justin Lin was a director of a lot of the movies, and he should have stayed the director too, because I also think Louis Leterrier, who directed Now You See Me, did not stand the test of time with this. It just felt kind of all over the place. But I'm glad with some of the things that happened. Vin Diesel is ridiculous. And it was very funny. There's parts that was very funny. There's action that was enjoyable. I waited a week to see it, and my theater only has one Dolby screen, the Dolby Atmos screen, the Dolby Cinema screen rather, which is it's just a slightly bigger screen. You get the same seats, the same reclining seats, which I really don't care for, but you get the same seats, but you just get a slightly bigger screen, and I believe it's in slightly better 4K. So it looks bigger, and then the sound is also a little bit more immersive, but it's nothing like IMAX. The last movie I saw in IMAX was Spider-Man: No Way Home, and I had a free ticket to that, I think, or reduced. I like a very, very reduced ticket to that, but I had to drive back to the suburbs, and I saw it with a friend who lives in the suburbs still. And even still, I don't think that screen was completely IMAX, even though it said IMAX. You should need an IMAX theater. Anyway, I've been to one IMAX theater, and it doesn't matter. Okay, Fast X, enjoyable, fun, funny, if not broken. And people say that about the other ones, but man, I like 8, I like 9, I like 6, I like 7, I like 5, I don't like the other ones. This one just seemed... The running time is relative. I mean, it's fine. It's 2 hours and 21 minutes. It felt like less than 2 hours. There was a point where I said, I have to pee, and I went, you know what? Let's get past this action scene. And then it ended. And I went, oh, okay. Oh, Leterrier also performed several uncredited rewrites to the screenplay. He shouldn't have done that. Or maybe he should have. Who knows? Anyway, it was fine. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to buy it and have it and watch it again and again, like I've done 5 through 9. Because again, I do think that 5 is when the series got good. I don't think 1 is good. I don't think 2 is good. I do not like Tokyo Drift, and I've only seen parts of Fast and Furious, which is which was supposed to be the reboot, but anyway. Yeah, this one's the longest one, and yet somehow it felt short. Oh, then there's the TV show Fast and Furious Spy Racers, the show that I did not watch because it doesn't look very good. Hobbs and Shaw. Oh, there's a point where it connects to all the other ones. Oh my God, did such a good job on that at least. What else has been going on? I've not been playing video games. It's hard to do so, especially when we only have a couple hours at night. That's pretty much it. Nothing else going on. All right, let's get on the stories. This comes from the Wall Street Journal, written by Jessica Tunkel, Wall Street Journal. ESPN plans to stream flagship channel eyeing cable TV's demise. The internal project codename is Flagship. It lays out the shift shift in coming years as talks with leagues and cable partners have begun. One of the biggest issues for a TV... What is this on my shirt? Oh, it's a fuzzy. One of the biggest issues for people not dropping cable is sports. And then a couple of years ago, an online streaming TV provider, let's just say online cable provider, Fubo TV came out with sports centric streaming. What does Fubo offer? Fubo TV. I know one person with Fubo TV. It's a young lady I dated. So it offers. God, why would you? It showed me the sports, and then it immediately went to my local channels, which I don't care. In terms of sports, Fubo offers a whole litany of things from your classic broadcasts, ABCs, NBC, Fox, and NBC, CBS, all to Bally Sports, which was lost off of, which I think Fubo TV is the only thing that offers Bally Sports, and then FS1, your NFL networks, your ESPNs, your BN Sports, your Big Ten, your college networks, FS2, which is important, I'm thinking, because that is gone from YouTube TV at least. MLB, spring innings, channels for the Braves, channels for the Phillies, just different everything. And then I assume you have to sign up for NBA League Pass and the Braves and all that stuff. And it's a competent package, but it's mostly sports centric. I would think that it's for people who really just want to do sports. You know, they've got the Paramount stuff and everything. Anyway, but for a long time, you can only get ESPN on cable, and then ESPN Plus brought in the ability to stream just lesser known ESPN channels, save for ESPN 1 and 2, and then you also got 30 for 30 and all that stuff. But now Disney's trying to leverage the ESPN name, as they should, and trying to turn it into its own streaming package, as opposed to what ESPN Plus is, which is just, it brings in it doesn't have channels. Just essentially ESPN Plus lacks channels. It lacks the things that would make it a proper streaming thing. Because for ESPN, you want the live thing, you want the live aspect. You want to be able to watch hockey and basketball and football live, as opposed to having to watch, not having to, but having the option to watch a hockey game that's not even on TV. You know, the Nashville Predators, sure, they could be playing on ESPN regular, but they won't. They're not playing because there's a basketball game on, and so this game has to air on ESPN Plus. Now we're going to bring in both worlds. We'll see that service, I'm thinking, by 2024. I'm thinking late 2024, just in time for the Super Bowl for the following year. When's the World Cup? World Cup 2024? Hey, 2026. I was wrong. So obviously before then, we will see some sort of just, and it'll be ESPN Plus. I think it'll be a rebranded ESPN Plus. Consumers are ready to cut the cord. This new thing that they're dubbing Flagship. It's going to continue to offer the TV channel after launching the streaming option, people familiar with the matter said. And still, the change could have a major impact on cable TV providers, since ESPN is one of the main attractions of cable. The providers pay to carry ESPN channel and would have to compete with the new streaming service. ESPN has begun securing flexibility in its deals with the cable providers to offer the channel directly to consumers, the people said. The financial terms of those deals couldn't be learned. The company is having similar discussions with pro leagues, sports leagues, as those rights deals come up, and has secured the same flexibility from at least two major leagues. So let's pretend it's, again, hockey and basketball, and those leagues that make billions of dollars from just being watched on ESPN. Also, it opens up the door for them to be able to be streamed. Whereas and again, I don't know this, but purely speculative, MLB NBA has a streaming thing. Well, MLB's MLB.TV, they don't want that to eat in their profits. But I mean, that technically won't, because if you want to subscribe to that, then you won't do that. Okay, every media company is trying to do this. The system that they're doing now under the cable bundles. ESPN gets $9.42 slice of the average cable TV bill. It collects fees from cable providers for each customer, compared to the average of 49 cents per subscriber for the other U.S. cable networks. So ESPN is still a big ticket item, even though they have bad analysts and bad TV shows. Streaming's hard. There's things like Max is going to go up to $20 for the 4K option. Netflix is already at $20. Disney Plus is going to have to raise prices, and then there's packages and everything. MSG has a new streaming service which offers New York Knicks and Buffalo Sabres games, and it's priced at $30 a month. ESPN coming in here with its own streaming package is going to have to offer a lot, but also for the right price. The sports fans aren't going to pay if they'd already dropped if a sports fan, if this is what they've been waiting for, or if they've already acted upon it, if they've dropped cable and they were just waiting for ESPN proper, not just ESPN Plus, but ESPN proper to join in. Let's say that person has already has a subscription to Netflix. Let's just throw that out there, and then they also want Max. And for some reason, they have Amazon Prime. So that's 3 of those things. On top of, let's say, a presumed $15. Because that's direct money, instead of having to split it. Well, they would have to end up splitting it, because they have to give some money to NBA and golf, the PGA, and the rest of the squad. 74 million households had access to ESPN via traditional cable. I'm just saying that the people are going to be paying this basically the same amount. It's the fears of what streaming is. The a la carte model still affects the regular streamer. Has access to ESPN via traditional packages. 74 million households, or digital distributors like YouTube TV as of last September, which is down 11% from 2019. In the most recent quarter, income for Disney's traditional television networks, including ESPN, fell significantly to $1.8 billion from $2.8 billion in the year earlier quarter. We're seeing a shift to streaming, and this was inevitable. I think it's a little bit later than they should have done. I think the streaming thing, the channels rather, should have been folded into ESPN Plus if they were going to do this right around when Disney Plus launched, so that you can offer essentially what could be a complete package for the regular consumer. They have ESPN, which would be the sports that they want, and then they have Disney Plus, which would be the thing that'll, depending on their age, it could be for their children or for them, for people like me who go, hey, I want to watch Doug, which is not good, or hey, I want to watch Bonkers. Why am I choosing the bad shows? Hey, I want to watch Recess. And then they have Hulu, which would be the thing that caters more towards the other side of that spectrum. That's a good bundle, I'd say. I do say, because I pay for it. This next thing comes from Variety. I was going to say VIP. It's from the VIP Plus and the Variety Intelligence platform. Written by Andrew Wallenstein. Zaslav, speaking of streaming. David Zaslav's call for truce in streaming wars won't work. So David Zaslav is the head of Warner Bros. Discovery. He was the head of Discovery. And then when they bought out Warner Bros., he ruined the company. And he came out last Thursday, and I only saw this, not the article, but I saw his quote in passing. But he essentially said that at SVB's Moffett and Nathaniel's inaugural Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference, he said he called on competition to come together and, quote, end the repackaging of marketing and products. So basically, he just said he wanted more bundling, which is the thing that people are getting away from when it comes to streaming. I mean, not streaming, to cable. it's he said there's no specifics, but he says if we don't do it ourselves, I think it'll be done to us. There are also rumors of or actually no, let's not go with rumors. There is a I think on Amazon Prime right now you can get MGM and Stars for $11 per month, as opposed to paying, separately $7 and $7 or something, or whatever number that is. But bundles, I think, are the thing that would draw people away. I mean, eventually, yes, a bundle will bring in people. They'll say, "Hey, I'd love to get Paramount Plus with Showtime," but now that's becoming one app. That was a bad example. I'd love to get Paramount Plus with Stars, or Showtime with Stars, and get a nice little thing there. But eventually, that is just going to. How often are you watching Stars? How often are you watching Showtime? You have to choose one in the end. Unless you're like me, because I have a list. I have a table full of hundreds of movies and shows. Have I gotten through a lot? No. How many? Ask me how many times I watch The Simpsons. Once a day. Come on. How am I going to be able to watch? I did watch Succession last night. Zaslav knows full well he'd have an easier time getting all these companies aligned by rolling them up into one, but that would take forever, even in a more forgiving regulatory environment. Still, if anyone's going to play the role of the consolidator via M&A, he's the man. But Brian Roberts and Sherry Redstone may have said no so many times that at this point that Zaslav understands that's no longer a viable path for consolidation. People cancel cable because it costs so much money. And now now like for Verizon, you can get so many different bundles. You can get the Disney bundle. You can get Stars via them, AMC Plus via them. There can be one aggregate service, but it doesn't work where everybody gets a piece of the pie. In some cases, I think the aggregate would be much more like an RSS feed. I have an RSS feed to read all the news things I want to read. I have one for news, for New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR, The Atlantic, whatever. And then I have one for gaming, which is IGN, GameSpot, other gaming websites I can't remember. I have one for tech, The Verge, Engadget, Ars Technica, all that stuff, mobile, and sports. But I think it would mostly act like that. And we already have that with the Google TV platform, with Apple TV, with Fire TV, with whatever TV platform you have. That is the best way to do it. Disney, while it would seem like a good idea for Disney, let's just let's get past the government saying yes or no. But while it would seem like a good idea for Disney to have, for Disney and Apple to split ownership of Warner and Paramount and all that stuff, we would see a lot more cancellations. We would see a lot more splitting of the shows. Shows wouldn't be on Disney Plus as long as they are, or Paramount Plus, or Max, or whatever. This only works if it's music, if it's a music service. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Deezer, Kubo, the rest of those. Qbuzz. It's Qbuzz, right? Yeah, it's Qbuzz, I think. Tidal. It only works there, but that's because that's music. You can't really do it for TV and film. The fallacy behind the streaming wars is it's not even the biggest war being fought when compared to the battle royale among hardware providers and their operating systems. Zaslav correctly called out Amazon, Apple, and Roku as the players best positioned to bundle multiple streaming services because they're already going through it, doing aggregation models like Amazon's channels. And you can subscribe via Roku channels to Showtime or Paramount Plus. You can subscribe to Apple's channels which like Stars and AMC Plus. But then doesn't he know the thing that he doesn't want is that they'd be getting less money? Let's move on to the Cannes Film Festival. This comes from Hollywood Reporter, written by Mia Gallupo and Scott Roxborough. Multi-union strike fear has dealmakers on the edge. If you don't know the Cannes Film Festival, or Cannes as the regular person calls it, but I think it's pronounced Cannes. I don't give a hoot. The Cannes Film Festival. I'm going to go with that one. Festival was last week, and what happens is every year they do this festival. Also, David Zaslav was booed at the Boston University graduation, which I think was hilarious. Anyway, the Cannes Film Festival, studio buyers and purchasers and streamer purchasers, let's just say studio buyers from Netflix to Focus Features to Paramount, whatever. They go to the film festival and they create a hot market for movies. So there could be a movie starring Andrew Garfield, and it could be, you know, a big seller, and Netflix can buy it like that. Quickly and succinctly. On the other hand, some movies don't sell that well. Sometimes, and it's also just a film. It's a film festival too. But one of the biggest fears during that time period was the strike, the writer strike that is still ongoing, and they were concerned. I think both sides were concerned. You know, the film festival and not the strikers, the film festival and the buyers, that there could be executives felt confident. Excuse me, I'm sorry. As for the WGA strike, which with much more of a runway available than television networks, which are debuting fall schedules with predominantly unscripted fare, we'll see that in a second, executives felt confident in a cushion that would allow their film slates to weather the WGA storm. But one domestic distribution exec notes that should the strike last 6 months, that is when release calendars will start to feel the crunch. So they weren't afraid about crossing the picket line to buy, because they're not doing anything. They're not creating things, writing things, and buying things and writing things. This is the first time in a market where I've been presented with scripts with which are not the final script, coming with detailed director and producer notes about future significant changes, one buyer notes. The hope here being that this striking writer will come back and implement the notes quickly after an agreement is reached between the WGA and AMPTP. The buyers are left with a decision to purchase a project that may or may not be able to lens this year, with a script that may or may not be done. That is something that they should be worried about. And the longer this lasts, in 2007, 2008, there wasn't the advent of streaming. All we had was broadcast, cable, and premium cable, and maybe, a couple of online things, but there wasn't streaming, and streaming wasn't where it was at that point. Now I think this is a bigger business. It's not a think. I know it's a bigger business where you can have shows on TikTok. You can have shows on YouTube. You can have shows on Netflix, on Disney Plus, on Hulu for Hulu FX on Hulu, on ABC, HBO, Cartoon Network. You can have shows across any one of those mediums, and then now write it, scripted affair, appear on podcasts. They appear on Audible platforms. It's I think this strike is going to be a lot shorter, because the studios are going to have to realize that they need the writers more than anybody. And what you'll see here in this next story, coming from the Hollywood Reporter, written by Rick Porter, networks really tried to circumvent what is going on right now. In terms of, and I mentioned it previously, There's not a lot in terms of broadcasts on ABC. They're not doing any scripted shows for this coming fall. They're going to have 3 different versions of The Bachelor, including a new one starring older versions of Bachelors. It's called The Golden Bachelor, I think. Fox didn't put out a schedule for the second year in a row, opting to wait for a while before its announcement. And they uploaded on scripted shows. Unscripted rather, excuse me. And I think they canceled a couple, like Call Me Kat. They've got renewals for Farmer Wants a Wife and Special Forces, new game shows. Man, more Gordon Ramsay fare. CBS, I don't think Paramount did an upfront, but they did release their schedule. On some level, putting out a fall schedule doesn't. Okay, so they. Wow. So the only shows CBS has right now, one of the biggest factors is Survivor and Amazing Race. They've both been expanded to 90 minutes for their Wednesday night slots. That's crazy. They're both 90 minutes. Shows like The Neighborhood, Bob Hart's Abishola, NCIS, they're all still coming back for the fall. I don't know if they even have episodes written. That's crazy. That's very interesting to see. Are we sure this isn't 2024? CBS is one of the only networks with scripted shows. Let's see where NBC falls. There is a plan B at CBS, but the network isn't sharing anything yet. Interesting. I might have it wrong. I think NBC. NBC's fall plans include the same number of scripted hours, 10, as last season, but crucially, several of the shows filling in those slots have already filmed some or all of their seasons. Okay. There's new shows like Found, The Irrational, and Extended Family, which are products of NBC's year-round development, which I do like that year-round development thing. That makes a lot more sense. So you can do things like this. Quantum Leap and Night Court stayed in production after getting early season 2 renewals, and will have at least a handful of episodes ready for fall. And then, of course, they've got the sports shows. One big thing, though, NBC has penciled in fall premieres for 5 of 6 Dick Wolf shows, all but Law & Order Organized Crime, which is designated for midseason. Oh, I guess that show's going to get a shortened season, which makes sense. I don't want to see 22 episodes of Stabler doing toxic things. It's going to be business as usual for them. Oh, then they have the second half of their 20-episode Magnum PI order. Okay. And then more episodes of Weakest Link. Great. So it looks like CBS and NBC are the only ones not really relying on complete schedules of unscripted fare rather. But this just goes back to there needs to be some sort of way for writers and company and studios to get together and really make a deal. Because this is important. I think NBC's year-round thing makes a lot of sense, and it really keeps people employed. Because imagine being a writer on Quantum Leap. You get that initial 9, and then you get the initial 13, then you get a back 9, and then I assume it had 21 episodes this season. I don't know. I stopped watching halfway through. I think I started watching 4 episodes. It's a great show. I enjoyed myself. But it is very, very, very just on the nose at some points. But imagine, getting that initial 13 episode order, then you get a back 9, and then maybe even, you finish. They allow you to get 33. We haven't done 33 episode seasons in a long time. I think since Ozzie and Harriet, which is the first sitcom. But then imagine getting, hey, the show's renewed, and we're going to take a hiatus from, December to February, and then we're back on schedule in February. That would help out people. And then the strike happened, but you already have 16 scripts written. That really helps out people in the long run. Now, this next one, continuing on with that same idea, is written by Michael Schneider over at Variety. How the writer's strike is forcing a rewrite of the Emmy For Your Consideration season. We've already started the campaigns. I think the show is in September. Shows like Ted Lasso, Succession, Shrinking, they're all vying for that coveted trophy. No one knew that the strike would have any impact on the For Your Consideration. The various streamers and conglomerates had already shelled out millions of dollars to build elaborate activations, with not much mind to how opening these spaces in May, after the WGA's deal with studios and producers had expired, might become a problem. The possibility of a strike had been looming for months, but Emmy campaigning seemed to exist on another plane. It's about celebrating programs that had already been written and produced. The WGA had not shared any guidelines prior to the strike about what would be acceptable for writers in the FYC space, leading many to assume it wouldn't be impacted. It turns out the WGA had kept it quiet for a reason. On May 2nd, as the strike commenced, it issued guidelines that made very specific for writers: no festivals, no For Your Consideration. You are prohibited, quote, from making these promotional appearances about your work until the strike concludes. That took everyone by surprise. It shouldn't really impact it in any sort of way, but it does. And now that we have a lot of these creator-driven shows like Ted Lasso, like Insecure, and where the creators are the ones who, or Barry, for instance, who take the helm of directing or take the helm of writing. It's not. It doesn't seem like it's fair, but you have to stand in solidarity with the people that you've worked with. And in the end, I think in some respects, the WGA they're more than correct. But in some respects, I kind of agree with them that, and maybe this isn't the case, but you should be known if someone is voting for you. And if someone's voting for Bill Hader and Barry in this specific episode, and they thought this episode 3 of season 8, or excuse me, season 8 of Barry, God, I couldn't take it. But if episode 3 of season 4 rather is the one it's on now, if that was the best episode of the season, and they knew that Bill Hader, because they watched the credits, wrote that episode and directed that episode, then they should just know. Mulaney did not show up to the Netflix panel, For Your Consideration panel. Jon Stewart canceled his Apple TV Plus event. Planned events for Carpool Karaoke's The Series, Echo 3, Mythic Quest, and 5 Days at Memorial were just kaput. Other events continued, but without showrunners or a panel altogether. Prime Video's event for Swarm continued with star Dominic Fishback, because she probably didn't write it, but creator Janine Neighbors bowed out. The For Your Consideration event for the other two, HBO Max's other two, kept the screening but scrapped its Q&A. The same went for Apple's Truth Be Told, which is in its final season, which I think would have kind of needed that push. Yeah, for some shows, it's going to really impact them. For others, I don't think it is at all. For talent continuing to show up, one insider notes, quote, it's their way of honoring their showrunners. They're not crossing a picket line to do it. They're getting out there and talking about the showrunners and the work that they've done. It's past work. I don't know what you'd get an actor to go to an upfront, but an actor to an FYC event and campaign for the show is a different thing. We're going through these phases with the writers' strike where there's not a gray area. You're either against them or you're with them. I saw a tweet about the director Michael Mann cross the picket line, and he did so in a way that was, unbecoming, to say the least. But I saw the tweet, and it was like the person said, I didn't want to give it away, but I saw they used titles. There was collateral when he drove past the Inside Man. Things like that. I thought it was very funny, and I went, Michael Mann, he's still working. He's 80 something years old. You can't stop first of all, you can't stop the beat. Second, you can't stop the motion of the ocean. Okay. I think I did that joke in LinkedIn logs. I just recorded. They've already sent out these invitations. Everything's already gone out. Everything's already gone out. The TV Academy, they write here, the TV Academy requires events to be committed and contract signs 3 weeks out. So if cancellations are last minute, those fees have already been paid. So there's administration fees for your events and things like that. So you have to pay $5,000 for administration fees, and then there's penalties of $2,500. The Academy's not going to reimburse any of those. It's a catch-22. Then there's a question of who's on stage. The FYC organizers are also starting to be asked the question of whether an audience will still attend, especially if the panel is canceled. So if I'm somebody who's in New York for the week of the FYC events, and I see that there's the Q&A for the other two was canceled, what's going to make me want to just go and watch 2 episodes of the show and then get up and leave? They're important. These events are important. They're things that can help. Q&As can help make the actors seem more personable, and people can finally ask the questions that they've wanted to ask. Somebody. It's great for social media. It's great to just get the word out about the show, because there's so many shows. There's so many shows out. People will come to a screening of, I see here that Netflix attracted more than 600 people to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery for a screening of Wednesday. And then you got to chat with Yvette Nicole Brown. I mean, come on. She moderated a panel, but still. Ghosts from CBS had a standing room only crowd at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. The strike has upended a lot of things, and I think for the better. And in the end, while we're missing shows for the fall, this will ultimately turn to the favor of the writers. And when SAG are the ones on strike, hopefully there'll be solidarity coming from the WGA, just like SAG had given to them. Same thing for the Directors Guild and the Producers Guild, and then just regular guilds like the Teamsters and such. All of this is harder than what people think it to be. And that's the end of that. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. If you want to listen to our other podcasts, there's Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. Again, because of the strike, I am not doing that show. It's on hiatus. If you want to see past episodes or listen to past episodes, then do so at your leisure. There's also LinkedIn Logs, which is our LinkedIn podcast, the business podcast, where I try to become a LinkedIn influencer. You want to see video versions of the show, youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can also find News Time, which is our premier TV show. It's like The Daily Show, except way less funny. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at @cpluscomedy. Me at Chad Black White. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends about this, and thank you for listening. I love you.